Hello, friends. Welcome to the Jack Benny television show. I'm John Henderson from the podcast This Day in Jack Benny. With me today, I have Kathy Fuller Seeley, the author of Jack Benny and the Golden Age of American Radio Comedy, which I just got in the mail. We also have Terry Phillips from Imagine Air Theater and Buck Benny. Buck Benny is the host of the YouTube channel that you can watch this video on. You can see the video of the Jack Benny TV show. And he's also the host of my rival podcast, Jack Benny and OTR Podcast. So, Buck, let's start with you. We're talking about the episode of the Jack Benny TV show from November 20th, 1955.
Are we? Yes. Well, I will say this. I loved seeing our friend Johnny Carson, very young Johnny Carson. He says over and over again, the whole bit is kind of that he's been into it for 2 years. And of course, Jack plays that up against him that Johnny's giving him a lot of input on how Jack should do the show.
Yeah.
And I love that whole piece. I thought it was an interesting episode in that, like so many so many Jack Benny episodes, it has a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's a real hodgepodge episode. I mean, Johnny it's not like this episode. It's the second appearance of Johnny, the one we already played. Johnny's featured throughout the whole thing, and it's all about Johnny and Jack together. This one, Johnny is a small piece of the episode. I think my guess is that Jack sort of saw Johnny's bits and were like, hey, Johnny takes a lot of my stuff. So he's like, oh, that'll be fun to play off of. So we'll do that. And he wrote it as like a scene, and that's kind of it. And then after that, it's more a little bit about Dennis, and they're at home with Rochester. And so all of that piece is there. But I thought it was a great episode. Just awesome to see the interaction between a very young Johnny and Jack. And
yeah,
that was the cornerstone of the episode and the best part of the episode, even though it's kind of just the middle. But anyway, Kathy, let's go back to John. John, you're
I was going to say, when you look at Johnny Carson, like I've seen episodes from his black and white era, and he looks exactly the same except for like the color of his hair for decades and decades. And I thought, well, he always looked exactly the same. But watching this episode, this is even earlier. I think the earliest ones I'd seen were from the 60s. This is 5 years earlier. And just the way that he still looks like Johnny, but he looks so much younger in this episode. So it's amazing how young he started at.
Yes.
So,
and I'll throw out too that he had his own show, which they mention, they do a plug for at the time. And I've seen a bunch of those episodes. There's probably, if you look out there on DVD sets and things, there's at least like 15 of them available, I want to say. So like half a season or something. Yeah. And they're entertaining to watch. It's really interesting to watch them. Some of the humor goes a little longer than necessarily you might want it to go, but it's always some really good stuff mixed in there.
What was the 1955 show like? What was he doing? It wasn't a game show, was it?
It was not a game show. No, I think he'd already done the game show. Maybe his 2 years. Maybe the first year was the game show, and the second year was this, or he would do the game. I'm not sure, but it wasn't a game show. It was very much like Jack's show. It was essentially you take Jack's show and have it redone by a young guy, and that's sort of what you get. It's a variety type show, a monologue for sure. I love my favorite parts are the monologues. Well, Johnny's always been great at monologues, so but it's just funny how much it feels like Jack's show just done with a younger guy. But
critics of radio and television, John Crosby especially loved to rag on the fact that the entire industry had ripped off Jack Benny. And this is when John Crosby would write these editorial review pieces, criticism pieces, that seemed to be very negative about Jack, but what Crosby is so actually angry at was the fact that everybody in the world was ripping off Jack Benny. And
right.
So if we could have the full panoply of programming, we'd probably be a little dismayed and disgusted to see how many shows were very poor imitations of what Benny was trying to do.
Well, and those imitations, which is interesting, would be weekly imitations, so you would actually see them more than you would see Jack Benny's show, right? Jack was on once a month or something, so yeah. Terry, you got something with this one?
I'm going to throw out something that might surprise the rest of you. First of all, let me say that, let me confess that I did a little bit of stand-up earlier in my life, and I learned that we all rip each other off. Milton Berle, was famous. We used to get kidded a lot by his fellow comics for stealing their material. But more than material, it's the style of performance. If you watch this closely and look at the earlier one that we showed, Johnny Carson was always doing Jack Benny. He did his takes, he did his timing. His whole career was an homage, as he himself often said, to Jack Benny. But Jack Benny, as much as we all love him, was also not an original in the sense that he was influenced by vaudeville. He was influenced by Yiddish theater. We all learn from each other, and whether we do it intentionally or not, it's part of the business, but it was really great to watch Johnny Carson doing Jack Benny while Jack Benny was actually there. It was really
cool. For sure.
Terry, you're so right. What I learned, Benny started stealing everything from Frank Fay.
That's right.
So back in the early 20s, the reviewers would say, "Oh, here comes another Frank Fay imitator, Jack Benny," and it was all about the quietness, the standing. Because vaudeville comedians at the time tended to be more yuck, with crazy outfits and doing things. And so supposedly it was Frank Fay, and God, maybe Frank Fay is the one who started it all. But Frank Fay is an incredible jerk. So much nicer to have a Jack Benny to be the font of all.
So if you're going to steal from somebody, just be nicer than they are.
They all had that combination. But they all looked for that combination of being self-deprecating and going after somebody, and that was the balance. I mean, at one extreme, of course, you had Don Rickles, and I don't know, there's a whole bunch of them at the other extreme who were self-deprecating, but that was the balance, trying to find your way in there. But everybody was influenced by everybody else. And to this day, when I see Bill Maher on television, I see Johnny Carson. But really what I'm seeing is Jack Benny.
Yes,
that's so true.
I agree. We don't realize, well, we do, but the public doesn't realize necessarily where it all stems from, and the fact that so much of it does come from Jack, and people are copying. They think they're copying Johnny, but in reality, they're copying Jack, and I guess they're copying Fay as well.
And maybe he learned it from Julius Tannen. I'm not sure. But isn't that marvelous? That's how societies that have oral histories, thank goodness that we have recorded media so that we can go back and do this detective work, because otherwise we just have to thank tradition. So
yeah, for sure. Speaking of detective work, he transitioned so smoothly. I did a little detective work to figure out some of the references in this episode, because there was a couple that I did not know. Well, one in particular, which was the $64,000 question reference.
Yes.
So the $64,000 question was a game show, and each time you answered the question, the amount that you could win would double. And when you got to a certain point, they put you in this glass box, this isolation chamber, where the contestant could only hear the host and the question he was asking. And once he asked the question, he had 30 seconds to answer the question, or, he lost the $32,000 question or the $64,000 question. And actually, the first person ever to win, to get the $64,000, had just happened a couple of months earlier in September. This is from November of 1955. So, but when you see that image of him in the isolation booth, and it's just a spotlight on him and the rest of the studio is dark. And then I'll also mention quickly some of the other references. Here's one I I looked up, I couldn't find anything on it. So if you have any information, that would help. But they mentioned a publication called the TV Guide. I don't know what that is.
It was a rare publication that very few people got in the day. I don't know.
Especially with his picture on it. So
Yeah, exactly. And
I
then
loved it when he said my picture was on it last week or something, and
Yeah.
Johnny's like, "Oh yeah, I was on it 8 weeks ago."
yeah. And then the other thing was they mentioned a movie that Jack made 12 years earlier, and so I looked back and it didn't seem like there was a movie 12 years earlier, but I assume they're talking about The Horn Blows at Midnight, because that's the movie that they're always
Yes.
joking about and making fun of, like a famous flop.
Which would have been like 8 or 9 years ago or
That's right,
something at the
yeah.
time, right? It wasn't 12.
well, maybe 12 is a funnier number. So.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I was thinking.
But Jack always played with the numbers, which is interesting. I mean, it'd be like what was unique in this episode, you did hear Dawn and Johnny. Johnny said, how long have you been with Jack? And he doesn't say how many years. He says since 1934, which of course was completely accurate. Yeah. So it was just interesting that time they got it right. But usually he'll say something like, 17 years, 16 years, and you're like, wait a minute, he was with him 22 years at this point, or they're always off by a number of years. And I just think chances are the writers maybe had put in their script 17 years question mark or something, and they just let it go, because who's going to sit there and figure out it's 19 years now, it's like so they thought, I get it close.
And yet there was such a tradition in the Benny show of marking the anniversaries of these things. They've done it so long in radio. Oh, this is my 17th year. Oh, this is my 18th year.
Which so often would seem wrong themselves. Like you'd go back and figure that out and go, aren't they like a year off or two?
Yeah.
But I'm like, whatever. Well, and then there's sometimes they're celebrating the length of time that like for Dawn, the length of time that he's been in radio, not on Jack's show, or the length of time that someone had been in entertainment. And so you go, okay, well, wait a minute, so sometimes it wouldn't seem to make sense, but you just roll with it on Jack's show and just go with it. It's all good. But anyway.
It always impresses me that they assume the audience had also been there for all this many years.
Yes.
And
yes.
Speaking of numbers, I loved how Jack slipped in there. He said, I've been in, what did he say? I've been in show business 22 years.
Yes. I thought that was great too. And it shows how good he is with his timing and everything, because that sounded like a natural, flub or something, but in reality we know, no, that was actually accurate. Yeah.
I was so impressed with the writing and performance of the routine of Jack and Johnny.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the very best of the radio performances, because sometimes everybody's getting older, and you got to do the show every week, and sometimes it's just, as Jack said, just trying not to be lousy. But just the combination of beautiful timing on both their parts, sharp writing. Just you say one of those things I love about Jack, when he can go from being happy to angry to, or jealous or things like that. I thought it was wonderful. So.
And Kathy, I'm glad you said that, because it also reminded me that these two performers really knew their characters. And of course, Johnny knew Jack, having watched him and studied him, and as we talked about before, written about him. And so in some ways, in addition to the great writing, they already had a lot of those moves, a lot of those instincts in them. They'd been rehearsing this performance for years already.
Well, can you imagine the pressure on Johnny? Because he's like, okay, I'm with my absolute idol, and so I got to pull off the most professional piece I can possibly do here and say things that go against the grain. I mean, I think the very beginning, where he's really coated on heavy on Jack about how wonderful Jack is and everything, I think that is more the authentic Johnny, that if you just let him go, that's where Johnny would have gone with this. But they know you can't just come on a show and compliment somebody for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. You gotta put a bit together. And so they put a bit together, and both times Johnny's on, they kind of play with this stuff, kind of poke Jack. And I thought in both episodes, I could see that Johnny felt a little uncomfortable, because both times at the end he would say something like, "Oh yeah, you guys had this as a joke," and you guys, they would not just let it stand. They actually would explain it, which doesn't always happen on Jack's show. A lot of times things just happen and you move on. But anyway.
Yeah, considering that Jack Benny was Johnny Carson's idol, he doesn't seem nervous, so he's either the best actor in the world, or he's just chill, no big deal.
Yeah.
And I just want to say how this connects to the very best of those routines are with the people who are the most unlikely. And it reminds me of when the Walking Man winner, the little old lady on the radio show, how she managed to put Jack down. So it's one thing to have your equal, or to have a Fred Allen do it.
Yes.
But and that's where Johnny's youth, the fact that he is so young and only only been in show business 2 years, that just makes it so perfect. As to have Bob Hope come on and do it would be an entirely different routine.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, well, I can't wait to watch this episode again. So let's get to it. Here's the episode from November 20th, 1955. Enjoy the show.
Thank you, John.
And happy birthday, Johnny Carson. So.
Oh yeah, happy birthday. That's why we aired all these Johnny Carson shows, because it is his birthday, or really close to it at this point. We're a day after it, I think. Anyway, let's move.
From Television City in Hollywood, the Jack Benny program with his special guest, Johnny Carson, presented by Lucky Strike.
Light up the Lucky, it's light up time.
Be happy, go lucky, it's light up time.
For the taste that you like, light up the Lucky Strike. Relax. It's light up time. There's a time and a place for everything. And the right time for a Lucky is any time you want to enjoy a great cigarette. And the right place for a Lucky is wherever you happen to be at the time. You'll always enjoy Luckies because Luckies taste better. Lucky Strike is made of fine, naturally good-tasting tobacco. And it's toasted to taste better, cleaner, fresher, smoother.
Yes, sir. Lucky's taste better. Anytime, anywhere. So right now, light up a Lucky. It's light up time. Enjoy the best tasting cigarette you ever smoked.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Lucky Strike program. Now, if my voice should give out any time during the show, that's because yesterday I went to the Coliseum to see the USC-UCLA football game. And that was really exciting. I mean, there was such a crowd there, such excitement, and the betting that went on. And everybody was making bets, I lost $3 myself. There was a pickpocket in the crowd. He got me as I was coming through the tunnel. But not only that, I must tell you what else happened to me. Finally, the usher took me to my seat. And out of 100,000 people, who do you think I was sitting next to? Dennis Day. That's all I needed. That kid drives me nuts, really. He was supposed to be on my show today, but after what he did to me yesterday, I just couldn't take another half hour of it. Well, I'll tell you, the game had just got started, and Dennis handed me a hot dog. So I said, "Thank you, Dennis." I took a bite out of it, and the fellow sitting on the other side of me punched me in the nose. Dennis didn't tell me I was supposed to pass it. Finally, the gun went off. And Dennis says, "Goodbye, Mr. Benny. I'll see you tomorrow. Be careful driving home." I said, "I will, Dennis." I rushed out to beat the crowd, got in my car, and I was almost in Beverly Hills before I realized that the gunshot was only the end of the first half. Now, you know why I can't have him around me, because he just... However, ladies and gentlemen, during rehearsal one day this week, I was coming in, and there's a young fella here who does his own show for CBS. And his name is Johnny Carson. Now, as a rule, I do not rave about other comedians. But this fellow has everything it takes to become a great success. And he's so young, too. It's frightening. Anyway, I asked him, I said, "Johnny, as long as you're around here and you're rehearsing, would you mind coming on?" Because I love his work, would you mind coming on, just saying hello to the folks in a few words? And here he is, Johnny Carson. You know, Johnny, I was just telling my audience how much I enjoy your work. And I think, in my opinion, you're going to be one of the real great comedians.
Well, thank you, Mr. Benny. You know, coming from you, that's a wonderful compliment. It means a lot. Because, you know, for years, you've been my idol.
Really?
Yes. No, I remember when you were in vaudeville, I used to save up, you know, pennies just so I could go down and watch you work. I'd sit up for hours in the gallery, and I admire the way that you'd hold the audience right in the palm of your hand, every minute.
Gee.
And I'd go home at night and even lie awake and wish that I could grow up to be just like you, Mr. Benny.
Well, you can call me Jack.
Thank you, Jack. And even when I watch you on television today, doing your own shows, I know that I'm watching a genius, a master at work.
Well, now, wait a minute. Really, now that's a little bit embarrassing.
Well, then I won't go on.
Oh, no. You can go on. You know, you're my guest. You can say whatever you like.
Jack, I'll wait and tell you later when we're together.
All right. You know, Johnny, I meant to ask you one thing during rehearsal. How long have you been in show business?
2 years.
2 years. Gosh, that's amazing. I've been in it practically all my life. Well, you're certainly doing a wonderful job.
Well, thank you, Jack. And I want to tell you that I never miss one of your television shows.
You watch all of them?
Every single one of them.
Well, isn't that nice? Huh?
And Jack.
Mm-hmm.
Jack.
Yes?
Would you mind if I made a few little suggestions? Suggestions? Well, in the nature of constructive criticism.
Mm-hmm.
You don't mind, do you?
No. I think constructive criticism is good for everybody, you know. How long did you say you were in show business?
2 years.
Well, Johnny, what are some of these criticisms?
Well, for one thing, Jack, and I'm sure this can easily be corrected.
Well, good.
One thing I've noticed is your pace seems to be, a little off or something, not quite right.
Mm-hmm.
It seems, pacing seems a little slow.
I mean, you don't like my timing, huh?
Well, let me put it this way, Jack. It's all right to be slow, but you're sort of a lazy Perry Como.
Well, I think, you know, comments like that, if they can further my career. And how long were you in show business?
2 years.
I mean, not 2 years and 6 months or 2 years and 3 months. Just
2 years.
2 years. Well, Johnny.
Now, another criticism.
Oh, is there more?
Yes. Jack, I'm kind of concerned with that long take you do at the audience.
You mean you don't like that after I tell a joke, the way I stare at the audience, is that it?
No. I always have the feeling that you're surprised they're still there.
I see.
Fortunately, that also can be easily corrected.
Oh, well, that's fine. Well, if you're through now...
Well, there is one more thing.
Well, then tell me. I mean, don't keep anything away from your idol. Out with it.
Well, as long as I'm being constructive, Jack, this I have to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you may not realize this,
Yeah.
but every move you make, your delivery, every little inflection that you have is exactly the way I work, and I don't think it's fair. See, you're staring again.
Now, listen to me, Mr. Carson.
Call me Johnny.
I'll call you anything. You've got a lot of nerve saying that I'm stealing your style. Everything I've done since I started in show business. 22 years ago. And if I were going to copy anybody, it wouldn't be an unfunny, untalented upstart like you.
Well,
now cut that! Johnny Carson, I came out here at the start of my show, didn't I? Telling the audience what I thought of you, how wonderful
now,
you are.
Jack, wait a minute. Wait just a second. Remember when you asked me to be on your show?
Yes?
You were the one who told me to do this routine so we could get some laughs.
I suggested that you insult...
When you called me 2 weeks ago, remember?
Oh, my goodness, I did. Oh, Johnny, I'm terribly sorry, really. But I don't know, you were so good, I thought you meant it. Wasn't he good? I thought he was. Oh, Johnny. Well, now that you were kind enough to come on my show, I'd like to have you do something by yourself.
Oh, that'd be fine, Jack.
Would you like to?
Maybe I could tell a little joke or something?
Fine. And Johnny, I want to say one more thing to you. You
Yes,
just
sir.
keep on improving the way you are. You're a very young fella, and it won't be long before you'll have your picture on the cover of TV Guide, like mine was on this week.
Mine was on 8 weeks ago. Actually, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy, that Jack invited me on his show down here. And, about this little routine we just did. We're kidding, of course. Because even though I've admired Jack for years, we work nothing alike at all. Of course, Jack, I will say this, I have to tell you, Jack's eyes are a little bluer than mine. And so's his age. But anyway, what I wanted to tell you was this.
Jack,
Jack,
before you go any further. Oh, Johnny, I didn't know it was you. I thought Jack Benny was still here.
Confuse you too?
Oh, Johnny, you certainly did. But, Johnny, I must tell you the most exciting thing happened this morning. Gee, it just thrilled me to death.
Well, tell me, Don, tell me. What is it?
Well, Johnny, there was a long line of people lined up in front of a cigarette machine. Oh, there must have been 40 or 50 people there. And everybody who put money in that cigarette machine bought a package of Lucky Strike.
No.
Yes, Johnny, yes. And then you know what I did, Johnny? I went around and I asked each one of them individually why they smoked Lucky Strike, and every one of them said it's because Luckies are toasted to taste better. And Luckies are cleaner, fresher, and smoother.
I know.
And not only that, Johnny, but Luckies are round and firm and fully packed and free and easy on the draw.
Good. Is that all, Don?
Yeah, Johnny, that's all.
Well, Don, seriously, now, I do want to ask you one question. How long have you been working for Jack?
Well, now, let's see, Johnny. I've been with Jack since 1934.
1934?
Yeah.
Gee whiz. And Jack's been paying you for...
2 years.
Oh, 2. Let's go. All right.
Gee, the show's been over for an hour. The boss is usually home before now. Hello?
Hello, Ron. Rochester, this is Don Wilson. May I speak to Mr. Benny?
The boss hasn't come from the studio yet.
Oh, he hasn't?
No, and I've got his dinner already.
Well, I'm sure he won't be long.
Yeah, I hope not. I don't want his Chateaubriand to get too well done.
Well, so Mr. Benny's going to have steak.
No, hamburger.
But, Rochester, you said Chateaubriand, and Briand means steak.
Not in this chateau. Is there any message, Mr. Wilson?
No, I'll see him tomorrow. Goodbye, Rochester.
Goodbye. Gee, it's 9 o'clock. He's never been this late before. I better go turn down the fire on this. Boss, I didn't hear you come in. I just came in the oven.
Help me turn off the lights.
The lights?
Yeah.
What's the matter, boss? What's wrong?
Rochester, somebody's after me.
Oh, boss, you made that picture 12 years ago.
Rochester, I'm serious. I decided to walk back from the studio. It was getting dark. I turned back, and there was a fellow with his overcoat collar turned up. And he was following me.
How do you know he was following you?
How do I know? Every time I looked back, he hid behind a tree, then he hid behind a bush. I even went down a dark alley. I still couldn't lose him.
Look, boss, you're getting yourself all worked up over nothing.
Oh.
You know, at nighttime, your imagination plays tricks with you. What you saw were just shadows.
Shadows?
Mm-hmm.
It could be my imagination. 'Cause I don't know, why would anybody want to hurt me? I'm such a sweet guy. Don't you think so, Rochester?
Uh-huh, and you're modest, you're kind, and you're considerate.
And I'm generous.
There goes your imagination again. Come on, boss, I've got your dinner already. Sit down, eat it.
Okay. Funny, Rochester, I should get all upset over it. Nothing, I don't know.
Oh, it's nothing to worry about.
I guess not.
I'll turn the lights back on.
Okay.
Get a little bright around here. Everything's gonna be all right.
I hope so. Gosh, that was a wreck.
And while you're having your soup du jour, I'll go get your Chateaubriand.
Thank you, Pierre.
Eat pas de quoi, monsieur.
Imagine my getting all worked up just over maybe some shadows. That's all they were, shadows. I thought somebody was following me. I get it, Rochester. Can it be the breeze that blows that in? Hello? Hello? Hello?
What's the matter, boss?
Rochester, I just answered the phone. The fellow who was on the other end hung up.
How do you know they hung up?
How do I know? I could hear the click. I distinctly heard the sound of a click.
Maybe they were using a phone booth, and the sound you heard was the dropping of a dime.
Dropping of a dime. I've known that sound since I was 2 years old.
Look, don't get yourself all worked up. I'll go get you a sedative.
All right. If I only knew why they were following me. If I only knew what they wanted. Can't figure that out. Oh, they threw a rock in the window. There's a note on it. Get out of town before it's too late. Get out of town. Just a note, no ticket. I'm gonna call the police. Operator, hurry.
Number, please.
Operator, look it. This is an emergency. Get me the police.
One moment, please.
One moment, please. One moment, please. It's always one moment.
Beverly Hills Police Department.
Oh, officer. Look, my life is in danger. Officer, I'm at 366 North Camden Drive. Rush right over, will you?
366 North Camden Drive.
Yes.
Who is this?
Jack Benny.
Gee, you sound just like Johnny Carson.
I don't care what I sound like. Now get over here. I'm going to worry about Johnny Carson now. Rochester, I thought you were going to get me a sedative. What took you so long?
Well, when I opened the medicine cabinet, there were 2 boxes with no labels on it. So to tell which pill was which, I took one of them.
Well, could you tell which was the sedative?
I must have. I fell asleep.
This is no time for jokes, Rochester. I'm in danger. I just called the police. Why aren't they here?
Look, boss, I'll fix you a drink.
I'll fix my own drink. Rochester, there's another rock. Right there.
Oh, there's a note on it, too.
Well, read it to me.
You have been told to get out of town. You now have 30 seconds to think it over.
30 seconds to think it over. Wait a minute. Wait, stop it! Stop it!
Boss, what's the matter?
What, the lights, the music.
What lights? What music? There goes your imagination again.
It's not mine. You just read the note, didn't you? To Rochester, I'm telling you, somebody is after me. I know they are. Here come the police. The police are coming. The police. The police are coming. The police. Open the door.
Police?
We just caught the prowler outside, Mr. Benny.
You did?
My men will bring him in so you can make a formal complaint.
Well, hold him tight, will you? I know he's out to kill me.
It's all right. We got him under control. Bring him in, boys.
Dennis Day, you?
Hello, Mr. Benny.
You were the one that's been following me?
Uh-huh.
Making me a nervous wreck?
Uh-huh.
Dennis, why would you do this to me?
Because you wouldn't put me on your show today.
Is that an excuse for following me down dark alleys? For making a wreck out of me? Oh, boy, if I'd only known it was you.
I didn't want you to know it was me. That's why I always stayed a half a block away.
Half a block away, I could feel you breathing down the back of my neck.
I know.
You know? How could you breathe if you were a half a block away down my neck?
I had a long straw.
Now stop!
Shall we take him along with us, Mr. Benny?
What?
Shall we take him along with us?
No, leave him here.
Leave him here?
Yeah.
Gee, thanks, Mr. Benny. Come on, boys.
I don't know, Dennis. Boy, what you did to me today. I don't know. For years I've been lecturing to you. For years I've been talking to you. And I don't know. Nothing seems to help. Well, there's only one thing I can do. Rochester.
Coming out.
All right, Dennis. Take off your coat. Come on, take off your coat. Take off the other one. Now, come here. Come here. I found you!
Jack and Dennis will be back in just a minute. First, here's a word in cigarette smoke.
Light up the lucky.
It's light up time.
Be happy, go lucky.
It's light up time.
For the taste that you like, light up a lucky strike.
Relax.
It's light up time.
The end of a perfect date when you stop for a light snack and linger with your Luckies. Why Luckies? Well, that's easy. Luckies taste better. Naturally they do. Lucky Strike means fine tobacco. And then this fine, good-tasting tobacco is toasted. It's toasted to taste even better, cleaner, fresher, smoother. So next time you want to linger, light up a Lucky.
For the taste that you like, light up a Lucky Strike.
Right now.
Light up a Lucky. It's light up time.
Dennis, you're really a silly kid, but I must say you put it over on me today.
Gosh, did I really?
You certainly did. Gosh, I don't know. Walking home in the dark like that, I don't know, I was frightened. I had such an eerie feeling, you know?
What was that, Mr. Benny?
I said walking home, I had such an eerie feeling.
Gee, that's the place where I was born.
Erie, Pennsylvania.
No, Feeling, West Virginia.
Dennis, the reason you raised such a devil because you wanted to be on my show. I nearly said something else, but the reason you... I'm nervous at the end of the show, you know. Dennis, you wanted to sing a song, is that right?
That's right.
You wanted to sing?
Yes.
All right, I'm sure they got...
I'd like to sing a song that was written by Sammy Kahn. It's called Love and Marriage. Mr. Benny, just to prove to you that my feelings weren't hurt, I wrote a special lyric, on the second chorus, and it's all about you.
Oh, the second chorus, Love and Marriage, dedicated to me.
That's right.
Oh, that's sweet.
Okay, Malin? Huh?
Sit down here.
Love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage. This I'll tell you, brother, you can't have one without the other. Love and marriage, it's an institute you can't disparage. Ask the local gentry, and they will say it's elementary. Try to separate them, it's an illusion. Try, and you will only come to this conclusion. Love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage. Dad was told by Mother, you can't have one, you can't have none, you can't have one without the other. Oh, this is the second chorus.
Oh, the one about me?
You, yeah. I want you to hear it. Jack and money go together like a bee and honey. This I'll tell you quickly. The thought of spending makes him sickly. Jack and money,
nice song about me.
And money go together just like gin and honey. You'd think that he'd be wiser instead of acting like a miser. Try to get a raise from him. It's like magic. Would he fire me instead? I would. You see, it's tragic, Mr. Benny, I won't ask you for another penny. I'm brother. I can't have one. We can't, no, we got to go.
You know, I had one line in the whole song and I forgot it. All it was, let me tell you, brother. Forgot the whole line. Oh, well. That comes from doing so much radio, Ladies and gentlemen, I do want to thank Johnny Carson so much for being on the show. Johnny, come out and take a bow, will you? gentlemen, incidentally, he does his own show on Thursday night on the same network. I'll be back with you 2 weeks from tonight. Another rock. There's a note on it. Oh, yes. Be sure and watch Ann Souther next Sunday. Thank you, and a happy Thanksgiving.
Appearing on tonight's program were Kim Dibbs and Chucky Bradley.